Hey, welcome back to Compounding Quietly. Most investors spend years planning what to buy. Very few plan for when to stop. That transition from building a portfolio to living from it is one of the least discussed decisions in long-term investing, and it's one that quietly costs investors more time than they realize. That uncertainty is more common than most investors talk about. When do you actually stop accumulating and start collecting? Let's think through this carefully. The reason this question feels difficult isn't the math. It's personal in a way that most investment questions are not. There's no signal from the market that tells you the moment has arrived. No headline, no alert, no clean announcement. The timing is entirely yours to decide. And most investors aren't prepared for that. What makes it harder is that accumulation feels right. Adding to a portfolio feels productive. Every contribution is a visible act of progress. The habit of building is one of the most powerful things a long-term investor can develop, and one of the hardest to let go. Some investors keep accumulating for years past the point where collection would have served them better, not because they're confused about the strategy, but because stopping feels like a loss of something they've been doing for a long time. Accumulation becomes an identity. It's what you do every month. It's the habit that built what you have, and moving out of it requires more than a number. It requires a new set of criteria, a different way of measuring whether you're on track. Most investors measure progress through portfolio value. The bigger the number, the more settled they feel. But portfolio value fluctuates, and when it drops even temporarily, it can feel like you're going backward. That feeling is one of the main reasons some investors never make the shift. The number never feels stable enough to stop adding to it. There's a more reliable signal to watch as you approach the collection phase. It's not the portfolio balance. It's the income your portfolio is already generating. The question worth asking is not how much you have. The question is, how much of your actual living expenses can your current income already cover? That single reframe changes the way the transition looks. Let's get into what that actually means. The ratio I'm describing has a name: income coverage. It's the percentage of your living expenses that your portfolio's income can already fund without selling any assets. If that coverage is 30 or 40%, you're still deep in accumulation. If it's 75 or 80%, you're in the transition zone. If it's 100% or more, your portfolio has already crossed the threshold, whether you've recognized it or not. This is why income coverage is a more useful signal than total portfolio value. Portfolio value is vulnerable to market mood. A broad market decline can shave 15 or 20% from your balance in a matter of weeks. But the income from quality dividend growth holdings tends to be far more stable. That stability is what you've been building toward, and it's the right signal to watch for. Now, here's a situation that plays out quietly for a lot of investors. They've been in the market for 15, 20 years. The portfolio has grown substantially. The dividends arrive every quarter, on schedule, but the behavior hasn't changed. The dividends still get reinvested automatically. The monthly contributions keep going in. And whenever the market dips, they find another reason to add. Just a little more, they tell themselves. Just until the situation feels clearer. Just until the market is less uncertain. That impulse isn't irrational. It comes from the same discipline that built the portfolio. But discipline in accumulation looks different from discipline in collection. In accumulation, discipline means adding consistently, especially when the market is uncomfortable. In collection, discipline means trusting the income stream when it's already doing the job. Those are different behaviors. And staying in accumulation mode past the point of readiness isn't conservatism. It's a form of drift, holding on to a phase that no longer fits the situation. That's worth naming directly because it can be invisible from the inside. The investor who has built successfully for decades doesn't feel like they're making a mistake by continuing to accumulate. It feels like more of what worked. But what worked in one phase doesn't automatically serve the next. Here's a more concrete picture. Imagine an investor who has been holding a diversified point, income-oriented portfolio for close to 2 decades. Their quarterly income now covers their core monthly expenses. But every time there's a market pullback, the urge to add more comes back. The price is better right now, they think. It would be leaving something on the table not to act. So they buy a little more, then a little more. The portfolio keeps growing, but so does the uncertainty about when it will ever feel like enough. That investor's portfolio is ready. The investor hasn't made the shift. And the gap between those two things is where a lot of time gets quietly spent. Here's what the collection phase actually looks like for many investors. The income arrives. They track it. They compare it to their expenses. They note when it covers a little more than it did the previous quarter. That's the rhythm. Not portfolio value going up or down, but income, gradually growing to cover more of life. The benchmark shifts from how much is it worth to how much does it pay. That is a fundamentally different relationship with the portfolio, and it's the one the accumulation phase was always building toward. Coming back to where we started, when do you stop accumulating and start collecting? Not when you reach a certain age, not when you hit a specific portfolio number, but when the income stream is stable, growing, and sufficient to cover your actual needs, without requiring you to keep adding capital. One more thing worth saying. The transition doesn't have to be a hard stop. A gradual shift works well for many investors, slowly reducing contributions while letting the income take a larger role. If your income coverage is approaching 80%, a phased approach makes sense, both strategically and psychologically. You're not flipping a switch, you're adjusting a dial, but the dial still needs to move. Staying in full accumulation indefinitely isn't a strategy, it's a delay. And delays carry a real cost, not in money, but in time spent inside a phase that has already done its job. The market will not give you a clean signal for this. It doesn't know your expenses. It doesn't know your timeline. It doesn't know what a sufficient income stream looks like for your life. What it will do is keep moving and keep presenting you with reasons to wait. There will always be a dip worth buying. There will always be a case for just a little more. The only thing that breaks that cycle is a set of criteria you defined before. The market presented the next reason. If income coverage is your signal, trust it when it arrives. If you've planned a gradual transition, follow that plan. The criteria are the anchor. The market is not. The move from accumulation to collection is not a retreat. It's not the end of the strategy. It's the point the strategy was always building toward. You built an income stream so it could eventually do the work. The whole reason you invested systematically for years was to reach this point. When the income is there, let it work. You don't start collecting after you've won. You start collecting when the system is ready. That's not the finish line. That's the strategy working exactly as it should. Compounding quietly. Slow, steady wealth building. If this helped, subscribe and leave a like. Everything here is for informational purposes only. All final decisions and responsibilities remain with you. Thanks for spending time with Compounding Quietly today.